Chapter 14, The Skeletal System, Part 2. The axial skeleton. The axial skeleton consists of a total of 80 bones. It includes the skull, the rib cage, and vertebral column. It also includes 3 tiny ossicles, the hammer, anvil, and stirrup, in the middle ear, and the hyoid bone in the throat, to which the tongue and some other soft tissues are attached. The skull consists of 22 different bones, 8 bones in the cranium, which encloses the brain, and 8 facial bones. The cranium forms the entire upper portion of the skull. It consists of 8 bones, many of which are large and plate-like. 1 frontal, 2 parietal, 2 temporal, 1 occipital, 1 sphenoid, and 1 ethmoid. The bottom of the skull has openings for major blood vessels and nerves. A large opening called the foramen magnum, which translates from the Latin as large hole, allows the spinal cord and brain to connect. The position of the foramen magnum tells the story of uprightness. So if we looked at our ancestors and we see the foramen magnum on the fossil skull pointing more backward, then that indicates that this pre-human, or even we could look at animals in general and say the location of that large hole dictates the method of locomotion. So your dog has a foramen magnum that comes out of more of the back of the skull instead of at the bottom of the skull. Here are the cranial bones. The bones of the skull, and these are now the facial bones, are located below the frontal bone of the cranium. The large bones in the face include the maxillae, singular is maxilla, which form the middle part of the face and the bottom of the 2 eye sockets. The maxillae are fused together except for an opening between them for the nose. The lower edge of the maxillae contains sockets for the upper teeth. The top edge of the mandible, which is the lower jawbone, contains sockets for the lower teeth. The mandible opens and closes to chew food and is controlled by strong muscles. Muscle attachment from temporal and parietal areas tells a story of food source. So these muscles attach to the skull from the mandible, and depending on what the animal is, they're either really big or not so big. So, for instance, if we looked at the skull of a beaver who eats wood, the attachment points for muscles are huge on that skull. And that gives us a clue, even if we didn't know that beavers chewed wood, that that animal had to have a lot of power in the jaw to get food. There are 2 zygomatic bones, which are also called cheekbones, and 2 nasal bones. The nasal region also contains 7 smaller bones. There we have facial bones. The vertebral column. The vertebral column, also called a spine or a backbone, is the flexible column of vertebrae, singular vertebra, that connects the trunk with the skull and encloses the spinal cord. It consists of 33 vertebrae that are divided into 5 regions: cervical, thoracic, lumbar, and sacral, and the coccygeal. So if we look at these, and if somebody ever asked you to say the number of actual vertebrae in each of these regions, you could look at cervical as being 7 vertebrae, and we could say 7 o'clock is breakfast time for some of us. Thoracic has 12 vertebrae, and 12 o'clock is lunchtime. And lumbar has 5, and that might indicate that 5 o'clock for an early dinner. And then the other 2, sacral 5 and coccygeal 4. From top to bottom, the first 24, cervical, thoracic, and lumbar, are individual bones. The 5 sacral are fused together along with the 4 coccygeal vertebrae. The human vertebral column reflects adaptations for upright bipedal locomotion and is like an S-shaped spring. Although newborn infants have a relatively straight spine, the curves develop as the backbone starts to take on its support functions, such as keeping the trunk erect, holding up the head, and helping to anchor the limbs. The S shape of the vertebral column allows it to act as a shock absorber, absorbing much of the jarring of walking and running, so the forces are not transmitted directly from the pelvis to the skull. The S shape also helps protect the spine from fracturing, which would be more likely with a straight, more rigid vertebral column. The S shape helps to distribute the weight of the body and particularly of the internal organs, so the weight load is not all at the bottom, as would occur with a straight spine. Okay. The thoracic cage, or the rib cage, is aptly named because it forms a sort of cage that holds within it the organs of the upper part of the trunk, including the heart and lungs. It includes the thoracic vertebrae and the sternum, or breastbone, as well as 12 pairs of ribs, which are attached at joints to the vertebrae. The ribs are divided into 3 groups. The top 7 pairs are true ribs and are attached by cartilage directly to the sternum. The middle 3 are false ribs and are attached by cartilage to the ribs above them. The lowest 2 pairs are the floating ribs, which are attached by cartilage to muscles in the abdominal wall. The attachments of false and floating ribs let the lower part of the rib cage expand to accommodate the internal movements of breathing.